Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're glad you're here and decided to take some time with us this evening. I'm Alyssa DeFilippo with Parents Helping Parents. I manage Connections California, our online statewide resource and information hub for transition to adulthood and adult services. So, ready, set, work, employment services through your regional center. If you or your loved one are not a regional center client, this might not be too applicable to you. So I just want to be very aware of that going into it. But I think the description was pretty clear for regional center clients. Our presenter this evening is Michael Luna. And Michael joined California's Department of Developmental Services in June of 2018 and is currently the chief of the Work Services section of the Employment Services branch of DDS. He and his team are dedicated to increasing employment outcomes for individuals who have intellectual or developmental disabilities, broadening the industry options for enhanced career choices, and looking for new and innovative ways to support people to meet their employment goals. So without further ado, thank you for being here, Michael. Thank you, Beatrice, our interpreter, and thank you all of you for coming.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Michael Luna here from the California Department of Developmental Services. Thank you so much, Alyssa, for inviting me to speak today. Thank you to Parents Helping Parents for hosting today's webinar. And I also want to say it's perfectly timed because today is the first day of National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So that what a perfect time to be talking about employment. And really excited to be here. And I'm going to be sharing my screen in 1 second here. So let me just get this going. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like we're up and running.
Looks
So
good.
just to give a little bit of background about myself, so as mentioned, kind of that intro, I've been with the Department of Developmental Services for about 7.5 years now. Prior to that, I worked at the Department of Social Services as the manager of the Deaf Access Program. So I worked with the deaf agencies throughout California that provided advocacy to people who are deaf and hard of hearing. And before that, I used to work at a one of those deaf agencies, NorCal Services for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, as a client advocate and IEP specialist. So I come from the nonprofit advocacy realm. It's an area that I absolutely have a lot of passion and heart for. And I also have three children, all with disabilities. My oldest son is 18, and he is deaf and on the autism spectrum. He's served by our regional centers. My middle boy is hearing and on the autism spectrum, also served by the regional center. And my daughter is deaf and goes to the California School for the Deaf in Fremont. So employment has something that I obviously have a lot of passion for. And right now, I'm very, as a proud father, can say that my oldest son is going to college in New York. Uh, for his career education. My middle son is even with on the autism spectrum is working towards his pilot's license, and my daughter, my deaf daughter, is a working actress, and so we have a lot of employment expectations in our home. And that is what really I want to convey as we talk about employment today and those services is establishing and really setting those expectations that our children can and should be working. They're valuable members of society that are contribute to every to our state and contribute to businesses. And so, really looking forward to get going. So, we're without further ado, we're going to get into it. So we're going to start by giving a little bit of DDS and its mission. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Regional Center, but might not know how where DDS actually plays a part in supporting the regional centers. We are going to talk a little bit about the regional center services, and then we're going to kind of dial in to what employment services are available through the regional centers, and then we're going to talk about two employment services that are unique to DDS and to regional centers. That's going to be the Paid Internship Program and our very newly launched the Coordinated Career Pathways. Really excited to talk about that one. That one is making a lot of hopefully a lot of big waves in supporting individuals. And then we're going to kind of close out with some tips for individuals and parents to talk about employment and to kind of bring those discussions up with your service coordinator coordinator in the regional center. And then, of course, we'll have time at the end for some questions and answers. So be available to respond with those with whatever time we have left. So the Department of Developmental Services, we are the only state in the entire nation that have an entitlement to serve individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities to live independent lives with the supports needed to get them there. That is through what's called the Latterman Act. And so the DDS, our vision for individuals that are served by us is that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities experience respect for their culture and language preferences, their choices, beliefs, values, needs, and goals from a person centered service system made up of a network of community agencies that provide high quality, outcome based, and equitable services. And I think you're going to see that represented when we start talking about employment. And I really want to key in on one word here, that's the person centered. That's going to be a really big part of what makes employment important and what makes our services in the work services section, excuse me, in the employment services branch, really pushing our drive and all of our supports putting out for the individuals is through that person-centered lens. So, as I mentioned, we are governed by the Latterman Act. There are five qualifying disabilities to receive services through the Department of Developmental Services in the regional centers. That is an intellectual disability, autism, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, or a closely related intellectual disability requiring similar treatment. To give kind of a better understanding of what that may be, if there was an individual who, prior to the age of 18, let's say got in a car accident and had traumatic brain injury and as a result developed a developmental disability as a result of that, that would kind of fall into that other category. These five qualifying disabilities had to have occurred before the age of 18. And what's important to know about that is that that does not exclude people maybe who have gotten a late diagnosis. If an individual may have gotten an autism diagnosis when they're in their 20s, through the assessment process, if it's determined that individual had autism prior to the age of 18, they would qualify for services. But on the opposite end, let's say we're talking about this traumatic brain injury, if that occurred when they were 22, they would not qualify for those regional center services because it happened after the age of 18. So hopefully that was clear, but I'm always, of course, going to be answering questions at the end if we need to get more into that. So DDS and the regional centers. We are providing services from birth to end of life. Some of you may have been a part of the early intervention, or maybe came in a little bit later once the school was involved. But there's so many different services that can be offered through regional center. This could be an advocacy, behavior intervention, adaptive skills, crisis support, living options, respite. Respite's a big one. My wife and I were big fans of respite. Having three children with disabilities, we needed a moment to be able to take a nap, and so respite services was such a big thing for us to have. So please use those ones if you don't have them. Daycare supplements, and then of course employment services you see down there because our goal is for people to live those independent lives, and a key factor in anyone being able to live independently is having income. Being able to sustain yourself, you need to be able to buy food, you need to be able to pay your rent. That comes through income, right? Then that's why employment services is such a huge aspect of the work that we're doing. So DDS is from the state level. Receive all the funding from the state budget, and we contract with 21 regional centers throughout the entire state. So we have those kind of governing laws that we follow the Latterman Act, and then all the other laws called Title 17 laws. Those are kind of where we operate. So we work directly with the regional centers. They are there, and the regional centers are there to get those diagnostic assessments, determine eligibility, develop those individualized service plans or those individualized program plans. Then that's where they have their service coordinators that are meeting with the parents, meeting with the individuals to talk about what those services will need to be in place for that individual, and then approving those funding services. Now we mentioned that we contract with these 21 regional centers. They are nonprofit regional centers. The reason why we contract with them and we don't just govern over them completely is that these regional centers should be able to operate and meet the needs of their specific community and catchment area. That was really important that these regional centers represent the people that they serve. So for their communities, the regional centers are there to develop resources with those vendor service providers. They are doing monitoring and oversight of the services that are actually being directly given to the individual and their families, and then also put on community education and outreach. So to kind of dial in more to what we do with employment services, we have a number of different services available. And I'm going to go through each one of them, but this is just kind of an introduction to where we're getting to. So we have supported employment individual placements, supported employment group placements, tailored day services, paid internship program, coordinated career pathways, and one that I mistakenly left off of this slide is a self-determination. Self-determination program does have options for using that budget for employment supports that are kind of maybe outside of the services that are offered through traditional services. The big thing you're going to hear from me when we talk about employment is CIE. That's competitive integrated employment. We look at competitive integrated employment as meeting three kind of really big criteria aspects. One, that the individual is making at least minimum wage or the same amount of money that any other person without a disability would receive doing that same work. The next requirement is that it has to be integrated. It has to be out in the community. Some of you may have been familiar with work activity programs with sheltered workshops, where it was kind of just a group of individuals with disabilities kind of working inside of a work site without any really interaction with the community. That is not what we consider to be CIE. The other third thing we look for is that the individual has the same opportunities as anyone else would have. That means they have the opportunity for growth, promotions, benefits, raises, anything that would be offered to anyone typical individual who's working in that site should be offered to the individual with disabilities. And there's no restriction on the actual amount of hours we look at. This could be full-time work, part-time work, and we always want to mention self-employment and micro enterprises. If an individual wants to own a business or start or be self-employed, that is employment, and we want to support that. So to talk a little bit about supported employment, the first one I want to mention is supported employment individual placements. So this is someone who has a job out in the community without any other, wasn't it's a direct hire with the business. So this could be a Walmart, it could be a fast food place, this could be a dentist office. We have people that work at law offices, but they're not with a group. There's just an individual by themselves who is hired directly by the business, and they can receive ongoing job coaching support while they're working there. Now, what this could look like is a job coach could be working with the individual and the business, especially when they first onboard. They're there typically more often to help the individual kind of understand the different, break down those jobs, really understand the different components of it, check in with them, make sure that they're happy with the job that they're doing. They're working with the business and the managers to say, help educate on what it is to work with an individual with disabilities. Like, let's say if the business owner is going, okay, well, here's this big job I want you guys to do. That job coach could be there to help kind of maybe break down the task in a way that is more digestible for the individual to really to understand and grasp what's going on. And then as that individual gets more and more comfortable with the job, they slowly fade out that job coach support. So the more they learn, the less they need the job coach till hopefully eventually they don't need that job coach at all, and then they can just continue on their job there. We do have a new service as part of our support employment individual, and that's job development. So this is a position within the providers that are doing job support. They are out there actually working with the individual to prepare for and finding that job. That means that's really looking at the individual strengths, what are their interests, what are their life experiences, where do they want to work, and then making those business connections out in the community to help establish those job placements. So that goes back to that person-centered idea. It's really looking at the individual, not just saying, hey, we got this one job over at Arby's. Do you want to work there or do you not want to work there? It's really what's your interest? Where do you want to work? And let's see if we can develop a relationship with that business so that they want to hire you on. The other support employment program that we have is group placements. So this is usually with it's exactly how it sounds. It's a group of individuals that are served by the regional centers that go out into the community and work at job sites. So this could be janitorial, this could be landscaping, laundry services. This is intended to be kind of a work experience. Maybe it's someone who's not quite ready to be out there by themselves individually, but still have some, skills they need to explore. So they may do a supported employment group. So we don't necessarily consider that CIE, but definitely a step towards it. So this could be anywhere from 3 to 8 individuals in a group, and they are supported by that job coach who's going out to the different work sites or the different work areas and checking in with the individuals to make sure that they are completing their task. The next thing I'm going to mention is the tailored day services. Tailored day services are for individuals who are in day program who may not be quite ready to enter in the work but want to learn those employment skills. So this is held at the day program. They can do it in conjunction with their day program services. They just can't occur on the same day. So if they want to do Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in their day program and do Thursday and Friday learning about employment, that's an option for them. And so this is really working with these individuals to develop those kind of soft skills, work experience, maybe as a volunteer, help them get enrolled into adult education programs or be part of more community activities. So again, it's really that more of an entry level into understanding the requirements of employment, the skills of employment to build them up so that they could then move on to more, hopefully, those supported employment services and get a job out in the community. And again, one thing that they may be able to explore as part of the tailored day services is self-employment and micro enterprises, if that was something they were interested in doing. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about two programs that are very unique to DDS. The first one is going to be the Paid Internship Program. I absolutely love this program. It's been around since 2016. And what we do is that we offer to cover the wages and the payroll cost for the employer for 1,040-hour internship per year per internship. The goal of these internships is to lead to permanent employment, whether it be with a direct hire with that business or that the individual gained skills, employment skills that they're then able to take to a new job. What I love about this paid internship is that it's a no pressure situation for both parties. For the individual that's taking on the internship, it's an opportunity for them to test out a kind of job that they're interested in. For the business, because they don't have to be the employer of record and because they're not paying the wages, for them it's like a great opportunity for them to see the value of bringing on people with disabilities, and really just the workplace positivity that goes on, the commitment that so many of these individuals have. They're one of the, like, there's not a whole lot of turnover when it comes to people with disabilities. When they like their jobs, they stay in them. And then at any time, if that individual or the business feels that the internship is not a good fit, they can end it and they can move on to the next internship. So I do like to say that it's 1,000 hours of that internship per year. So that means that if you averaged it out to be about 20 hours a week for a year, but it's also per internship. So let's say if a person was working 40 hours a week, they would end their internship after 6 months. They could potentially go into a different internship. But that would be a discussion with the service coordinators to make sure that it's appropriate, that the person goes into a new internship, or did the skills they learn give them what they needed to be able to apply uh, for a direct hire somewhere else. So again, the paid internship is used to demonstrate the skills of the intern to a prospective employer. Again, that's what I just mentioned about showing the value of bringing on people with disabilities. It allows the individual to build their resume to get the kind of jobs they want. I'm going to give a quick example. We at here at the department at DDS, we just brought on 3 interns, graphic artists, to help us develop brochures for individuals to when there's our natural disasters. And so these are graphic designers that came in. We had over 80 applicants submit their art to us. And I have seen some of the best art I've ever seen in my life come from the individuals that are served by the regional centers. And what they're getting as part of this internship is that they're coming out of it with a something to add on their resume that they worked with the State Department. Those brochures are going to be, tangible pamphlets that they can show employers. Like, look, this I worked for the state, and this is the work I have for that I did, and we'll get that experience about a lot of graphic artists are contracted work, so they get kind of that experience of what it is to be almost an independent contractor and trying to find work. So they get to build their resume through that. And a lot of, again, as we see in this next one, this is self-employment. This is the people who are independent artists that are that are crafting their business and building their resumes to then take out to new jobs. And then of course again at the end they're gaining those skills to take into new employment ventures. The next one I have here, really excited to talk about, is our coordinated career pathways. Some of you may have heard that at one time the state used to allow subminimum wages, mean paying people with disabilities less than minimum wage for work. There was a law that passed, SB 639, that that stopped that. So as of January 1st of 2025, no business can pay below minimum wage. And that for us, yeah, so those, yeah, a lot of applause there. I agree. I was very happy to hear that. But it did put us in kind of an interesting situation because we had about 2,000 individuals who were earning sub-minimum wage that now were going to be losing those job opportunities. And what we didn't want to happen was for them to move into non-employment services and be stuck there when they had value in work. But they may still need employment skills that are being developed so that they can achieve those to find those jobs and achieve those skills so that they can find work. So with that, in 2024, we launched this new pilot service, the Coordinated Career Pathways, and so it was specifically designed for people who were earning less than minimum wage or are leaving the high school system. It's important to say leaving the high school system because what we don't want to see happen is people leave high school and go into non-employment services because the longer they stay in these non-employment services, the less likelihood they're going to want to find work and the more dependent they're going to be on um, uh, government subsidies like Social Security or Medicare. So, um, Pathways serves again these two groups. So it's going to be one students who are within 2 years of leaving high school. Um, what that means is that let's say your child is going to be turning 18, they're on a diploma track, so they're going to be graduating at 18. They can start receiving the pathway services as early as the age of 16. We also know that there are people who are staying into the school system until the age of 22. So if they know that they're going to be leaving at 22, they could start services at age 20, or they could start services at age 24, up to age 24, because that's 2 years after they left the high school system. So there is no age restriction for this. We're looking at the parameters of being within the 2 years of leaving the high school program. This was also for individuals who were in work activity programs. That's what those sheltered workshops making sub-minimum wage. So if they have left one of those programs within the past 5 years, they're eligible for this program. And we made intentionally made it 5 years because when the COVID pandemic first hit, many of those individuals lost those employment opportunities. So we wanted to make sure that they were included as part of this pilot. And then any individual who is transitioning out of sub-minimum wage employment, because it wasn't just the work activity program that was paying sub-minimum wage. We did have group placements that were paying sub-minimum wage as well. So we want to make sure that they were part of this pilot. So some of the distinguishing features of pathways. This is a very person-centered planning. It's inclusive of those high support and complex disabilities. Again, that's a very important key aspect in here. We did not want to make this program accessible to only individuals who were easy to place. That is a term we've heard, easy to place. That means there's not a lot of complex disabilities, a little bit, yeah, it's a little, what they consider to be not as much support needed to get them employed. We want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity for employment. And so they do this through this person-centered career planning. We're going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like in a minute here. And then it's not just employment that comes as a result of this. We're also looking at those other options such as college education, adult education, and job training as developing these person-centered plans. And again, this is an individualized plan, and you're looking at all of the available resources, and you're also looking at things such as like benefits counseling and transportation. How does that play into that person's ability to find work? So that person-centered career plan is uh is navigated through, or is put in place by our career pathway navigators. So we just call them navigators for short. They are there to help guide that individual and their family through those career planning. There are so many components that play into services. You've got the education system. If they have a workability one, we have Department of Rehabilitation. There's Social Security that plays a role into it. You know, people, there's a lot of fear about losing Social Security benefits if they work. So part of it is making sure is that there's discussions happening about what employment means for that individual. Um, and so they develop this career plan. It's really, again, at the focus. The individual is at the center, is at the focus, the leader of this. And so once they've put that plan into place, they say, okay, this is your interest, these are your goals, this is what you would like to do. What are all the support services that need to be put in place in order to you achieve that goal? And then as that individual is working towards that employment goal, they're getting constant check-ins by the navigator, because there may need to be a time where they have to pivot. They have to think about, oh, change directions, or change, or if there's a new factor that plays into it that wasn't part of that plan. It's a living document that follows that individual through their entire career path. So one of the components that we've included as part of the pathways that can be a component of that person-centered career plan is a customized employment. And so we've developed a position called a customized employment specialist. And so just to give a little bit of context for that, you may be familiar, some of you may have heard of job carving. And I want to explain how job carving is different from customized employment, and why customized employment is the area that we want to go into. Job carving are looking at a job duties. If a job is posted online, if we looked at that job statement and we said, okay, this person can do, or they want A, B, C, D, E, and F for this job. This person can only really do A, B, C, and D. So is it possible we talk to that business about only having them do those? They don't do E and F, but they just do A, B, C, and D. Is that going to work for you, business? That's job carving. What customized employment is doing is that these specialists are talking to the business to say, what is your need as a business? What's a gap? What's something that this individual could fill in? and then let's develop a job based off of your need as a business. So this is a win-win for both. This is a win for the business because they're not having to focus on what the individual can do, but focus on what they can. Excuse me, what not to focus on what they can't do, focus on what they can do. And let's build a job off of that. So I think that really changes the attitude of that business. We do not want businesses to look at hiring individuals with disabilities as a charity act because it's not. These are valuable, contributing members of society that have their own career aspirations and should be respected and should be a part and should have availability and the options to participate in employment. And we want our businesses to get on board with that. So it's really looking at helping that business understand why those talents and skills really fit into that job. So that's what the customized employment specialist does. So everyone who goes through pathways will work with a navigator. Not everyone will work with a customized employment specialist because that navigator who's putting that person-centered career plan together, they're going to talk about is customized employment appropriate for this individual? Is that something we want to explore? Because if it's not, well, that's not going to be a part of the plan. They're not going to work with the customized employment specialist. But if it is, then great. We do have that customized employment specialist option. And even when they're working with the employment specialist, they are always working with that navigator. And even after they get that job, the navigator is still going to be checking in to make sure that all the supports were put in place and that it's been a successful placement. So that's our pathway service. It is a pilot. So it's a 3-year pilot. We launched it last year. So we were kind of into year 2 of it. We just actually gave a big presentation to a bunch of school districts today. So I'm hoping that we're going to get the word out and that more people participate in it. Every regional center has at least one provider that is offering pathways. So that is something that is available statewide. So last thing I kind of want to talk about before we get into some questions here is tips for the individuals and the parents. And I want to start this by saying that as a parent and as a parent with children with disabilities, I understand the idea that when our children are born, we have this kind of vision for our kids. We vision what they're going to be. They're going to work these kind of jobs and they're going to have these kind of experiences. And when you find out your child has a disability, that can change. It can be devastating. Not that it's bad, but that's all right. That's our feelings as parents. Because now we're entering a world of where we don't know what to do. This child may be the first person with a disability we've ever really met. See that a lot with the deaf community. A lot, 90% of deaf children are born to hearing parents. So the first deaf person that parent meets is their child. And so you have a lot of questions about what are we going to do? And for a typical parent, a lot of those questions comes to be, well, what do you think your kid's going to do for a job when they grow up? What are they going to be when they grow up? I feel that question doesn't get asked to parents with disability who have children with disabilities. They don't ask, where do you see your child working? And I really want to change that narrative. Work is should be the expectation. We should get into these with the goal that work is where we want to be. We want our children to be independent. We want them to have their own income. We want them to succeed, and employment is the start of that. So goal work is the expectation. If people are telling you not to worry about work, you tell them no way, pal. We need to start talking now because we need to make sure all those services are in place for when they're 18 and they're entering the world and they want to work. We can't have these discussions when they're 18. We're too late. Obviously, we're going to put in all the supports there. We're going to do everything we can, but we need to start having these discussions way earlier. So work should be the expectation. You're going to want to talk to your service coordinator about employment services. All regional centers have an employment specialist. So I totally understand that service coordinators are a jack of all trades, not necessarily jack of all trades, a master of none, because they have so much work to do. They have so many different areas of services they have to cover that they may miss that employment should be a real discussion, especially if they're in those youth service coordinators before they get into adult services. The adult services have more of an understanding of what we're doing in employment, but those youth service coordinators may not. but every regional center has an employment specialist. So if you want to talk about employment and your service coordinator doesn't know where to start, ask to talk to the employment specialist, because that's where we can kind of, those employment specialists can work with the service coordinators to educate them on those employment options so that we can get something in those plans so that we can start working towards employment. Um, Benefits planning is so important. Um, the idea of knowing how your benefits are going to be affected by working. I can tell you very easily right now that you will make more money in the long run by being employed and having your benefits be reduced than it is to stay on benefits. But that's really hard to kind of conceptually understand without seeing it. Things like the Department of Rehabilitation does have benefits planning counselors. We're exploring what we could do at the department to support individuals in those benefits planning. There's a website, a great website called DB 101, that you can actually put in kind of your benefits information. It can calculate and it can tell you about if you're earning so many dollars, this is what your benefits would be reduced to, but this is how much money, more money you can be making in the long run. So that's always important to make sure you're talking about benefits planning. And if you're in school, the school district may have Workability One programs or work experience programs that you can access. So they may be an option for employment as well. So we do have a number of resources on the DDS website. So specifically, we do have a page very specific to the Pathways service. The ones I put into here, I think, are really important for you as parents and individuals to know. So one is the just the overall web page. This enclosure E talks about the fact sheet for individuals and families. So this is kind of our brochure that kind of goes over the Pathways program, and then we have our frequently asked questions. And so with that, I am at the end of my presentation. There is a link in there for our employment services webpage. This is where we have been doing a lot of work to develop this page. So we talk about what employment services are available. We provide data on employment across the state. So you're seeing how each regional center is doing with their paid internships and with their CIE placements. So this is, and we're constantly growing this. We're going to be adding success stories so you can read about individuals who are out there working in the community. So really looking forward to keep building that site. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to pass it back to Alyssa. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today, but I'm still here for questions. It looks like we have about 20 minutes, right? To
We do, and we have a lot of questions as well from our inquisitive community. But before we get to questions, as promised, I'm directing your attention to the chat. You'll see the links for the English evaluation and the Spanish evaluation. Click on them. Please answer those questions. I will be monitoring how many are being answered. We have 126 attendees out there. I expect like at least 85 evaluations before we end in 20 minutes, at least 85. If we surpass that, you all get gold stars. Okay,
I
thank
was saying,
you.
unless you have negative things to say about me, if you got negative things to say about me, don't fill out that survey. But if you love me, please, yes, do that survey.
Everybody loves you, and so much good information. So let's kind of just start with I try and group some questions together. So a lot of people are interested in the self-determination program and how the regional center employment services can work with self-determination, including the paid internship program and potentially coordinated career pathways.
So I'll start with saying that. So when you're working with the self-determination, it's a little bit out of my wheelhouse because that is a whole different section. But what I do know about them is that employment is a service that can get a budget for self-determination. So let's say if you wanted to have someone like your parent. The individual wants their parent to be their job coach. They can use their self-determination budget to pay for that person to be employed with them and provide that job coaching. The paid internship is available for individuals in self-determination and is funded outside of the self-determination budget. It's a separate service. You do have to go through the typical services for to participate in a paid internship, but that is a separate pot of funding. It's a separate outside of that budget, but you still have the option to utilize a paid internship. Same with the coordinated career pathways. That is a separate outside of of the self-determination budget, and it's also we wrote it to be very unique so that not no one else has what we're doing. So when you think about like exhausting generic services, you may hear that from or being the funder of last resort or regional centers saying, well, you got to go talk to DOR, you got to go talk to the school district. Pathways is specialized funding. So you don't have to go through those generic services in order to do pathways, but also we wrote it in a way that no one else has it. So it's just us. So there is no generic resource for it. This is a special program for us. But self-determination has the ability to participate in paid internship and coordinated career pathways, and it's funded um, outside of their SDP budget.
Okay, yeah, absolutely correct. My daughter's in SDP and she has a paid internship program funded outside of her budget, but she does not qualify for coordinated career pathways. And I have a few questions about that because of the eligibility requirements. What about the 27-year-old who's been out of school and out of the work program? And, any chance of expanding those eligibility requirements,
And
somebody's asking.
so you gotta this was it's actually written into statute of who this pilot serves. Again, it's a pilot, right? It's us for us to find out is this a good program for us to be using. So it was a very targeted group that was identified as part of this pilot as part of what's written into statute. So through the pilot, we are not able to expand outside of what the eligibility criteria, which I mentioned within 2 years of exiting high school or leaving a sub minimum wage setting. We would love to see this program be so successful that there's no reason for us to not expand it. That we would want this to be pushed out further, but just where we are right now with it being a pilot, it's limited to those groups.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm not muted. That makes perfect sense. And you're already about a year and a half through
Uh,
maybe
yeah,
about a year?
yeah, we're getting close to a year and a half because we
Yeah.
launched it in June of 24, and so that was right before that new fiscal year. So yeah, we're about a year and a half into it.
Yeah, right. Great. Okay. Um, again, with the coordinated career pathways, everybody's very, very interested in this one. How would somebody apply for that if they're in a post-secondary program? So maybe we need to just remind folks about regional center services while still in school.
Sure. So, if they're in post-secondary, if they're still within that window of leaving high school within 2 years, you can still qualify for the coordinated career pathways. It starts with the discussion with your service coordinator at the regional center to say that I'm interested in doing a coordinated career pathways. That's where it all starts. Even with the paid internship, employment, it all starts with that service coordinator and the IPP planning team. So that's who you're going to want to start with. We've taken the pathways out on tour. We have been talking with service coordinators. We've done several webinars with them, but all the employment specialists again are also very well versed into what pathways offers. And so, if your service coordinator could be new or maybe they missed our webinars, but if they're not aware of it, I would tell them to please reach out to the employment specialist so that we can talk about coordinated career pathways.
Okay, wonderful. And then you touched on this, but what age would you recommend people start thinking about their child's employment?
Oh boy. If it was my vision, my absolute vision is that it should be in that IFSP. It should be in that even like um as early as those initial discussions. Where do you see your kid working someday? Like just putting
Hmm.
that mindset, right? I know that the CDE has always been working on trying to develop a universal IEP template that so even from 3 to 22, there's an employment component in it. Um, I think the school districts have a requirement to start talking about employment, I think at age 16. I will tell you right now, I was at my son's IEP meeting when he was 15, and I was like, "Oh, hey, I want to have DOR at the next meeting," and they went, "Nah, you don't need to have DOR. We talk about that later." And I'm like, "No, no, DOR is going to be at our next meeting, guys."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, you have to be obviously we're all advocates for for our kids, right? And so, I think always just even just bring it up with that IEP team at any age, just to be like, hey guys, like we want to talk about employment as an option. May not be today, but I want it written in that IEP that employment's a goal and I always want it present in there so that, and let's start talking early. So yeah, I in my perfect world, it would be day one.
Yeah, and those self-advocacy goals too. And there are districts throughout California that are working on getting self-advocacy goals into every IEP in the elementary school years. And, what about starting transition assessments early?
Oh
Why not having a 10 or 11-year-old fill out a form of what
my
do you want to do, right? Our kids
my
have longer runways.
Yeah, my daughter cracks me up because she's 14 now, and she has been coming to her IEPs since she was about 11, and she is at the
Yeah.
point where she noticed that one of the IEP goals, the teacher had copy and pasted from someone else's, and she went, "That's not me. Like that's not my goal.
All
That's like you
right.
need to fix that." And she has been, she's hilarious. She has no fear. She'll put a teacher in their place real quick.
Now that's a strong self-advocate,
Yeah.
that is a strong self-advocate, kudos. Um, okay. I can answer that one. Lots of SDP questions, but with this, if you want SDP, we have a couple of SDP overviews, videos in our PHP library. Just put in the search bar self-determination overview, and you'll find out about self-determination. This is not about self-determination. Um, how about what are some examples of paid internship programs, and how does somebody get an employer to sign up for that?
Sure. Oh boy, for paid internship, we've seen it run the gamut. We've seen store clerks, we've seen things as working at fast food. I've seen an internship happen at a lawyer's office where they were working towards their law degree, and so they did an internship at a law office. It can be anywhere as long as we're doing that competitive integrated employment, right? So we've seen it run the whole gamut of different types. When it comes to getting businesses on board, there's a couple of options. One, if you as the parent already have an established relationship or have an established connection, you can come to the regional center and be like, "Hey, I already found the job. We just need to get the paid internship in place." And so it can happen through that way. It could happen through employment specialists. Employment specialists sometimes are out there making business connections. Providers, especially with that job development service code they have now, the goal of that is to establish those connections, to do the cold calls, right? Talking to businesses. Hey, we've had this program. Have you thought about it? Are you interested in it? Let's get something together. Let's have some meetings. You'll see that when we start doing pathways and the customized employment specialists, that's also their role as well, is to find those job placements out there. But a lot of regional centers also have established good working relationships with businesses in the area that can provide a training ground for individuals. What we want to see, if we see kind of a particular business that have a lot of PIPs as part of it, what we want to see at the department is that people who leave that, while they may not get hired directly at that business, are able to take those skills and then go find a job. And so that's where we see successful internships on the business end, if they're cycling people through, is that they are teaching them skills that they're then able to take on to their new job placement.
Okay, and just quickly, any age requirements for?
Yes, thank you for that. You have to be at least 18 for the paid internship. There may be exceptions, but that really depends on the regional center. You want to talk to them to go under the age of 18, but 18 is where we have it.
Okay. Um, eh, so somebody's asking about finding specific jobs in specific fields, and I think what I hear you saying is that if the job developer might be able to help with that, an employment specialist might be able to help, or the parents, or let's just say the person themselves. If somebody wants some kind of a job in a medical career and that's what they're looking toward, then maybe they might be able to go to hospitals, find out. I mean, Project Search is actually another good thing. And we have an event coming up in 2 weeks on Project Search. I'll put that in the chat as well. This chat has a lot of resources. You will get them all, so don't be concerned if you haven't been able to get them all. And why don't you talk about Project Search while I answer a few questions?
Oh, sure. So, well, Project Search, so this Project Search is an international program, and so what they do is they provide kind of on-site lesson plans while also doing the job training. Where we see a lot happening is in medical offices, and so what they'll do is they'll do a 3 week immersive training within like the hospital, learning soft skills, interview skills, how to communicate with patients, how to communicate with doctors, really build an understanding of what that job is, and then they start working into then after the 3 weeks they start working at different sites. So they rotate the sites, I think, every 3 months. I think it could be anywhere from a 9 month to a 12 month program, and so they get experience in different kind of work sites. What I love about Project Search is that they have about a 70% success rate into CIE placements following the Project Search, which is an unreal number. That's such a great number. But actually, I just did a tour of Project Search last month where we went to a hospital with them, but we also went to Legoland. I got to see a Project Search site over at Legoland and the San Diego Zoo. Very cool. I was very jealous. I'm a Lego family. I have my background up, but if it was off, you'd see all my Legos that I have built up. So I was in heaven while doing this Project Search tour. Um, but a very cool, like just and that was what they're getting experience. Like let's say Legoland for experience, for example, they were leading a group like a presentation to the attendees. They had like this kind of water pool where they had all these different kind of sea creatures in it, and they were standing up at the podium. They had their mic on, and they were talking about the different sea creatures to the people that were coming in and touching them, making sure that they were gentle with the sea creatures. And they were saying that this person, when they started Project Search, was completely quiet, did not associate with anyone, was very kind of withdrawn. And now, only a couple weeks into her Project Search actual being on site, was leading these presentations again with the microphone on and directing people and talking to the kids about this. So it's a very cool program. I'm a huge fan of Project Search.
It is a great program, and I just put the links. It'll have Spanish interpretation. And I actually I put the links, but I forget when it is. October 16th. So if you just click on links again, the links will be in the email tomorrow, along with the slides in Spanish are going to come tomorrow. I know this is a lot of information, but we were able to translate the slides into Spanish, so you'll get the Spanish slides in Spanish. Um, Still a lot of confusion about coordinate career pathways, service coordinators not knowing what it is, people telling them to contact DDS directly, not the regional center. So just
Yeah.
a tip, a
Yeah,
tip.
and on the slides when you get them, we do have the active links for the coordinated career pathways. So you can always check that and you can send it back to them and be like, well, here it is. There you go. But also those employment specialists do have we talk to the employment specialists a lot about this pathway because we want this to be successful. So we're really pushing our employment specialists to be focused on this. So if you're not getting it from your service coordinator, asking that they talk to the employment specialist about pathways, or that if they could be any way that for you to be contacted. Sometimes the employment specialist will work mainly with service coordinators, but every regional center has an employment specialist, and they're all educated on pathways.
Okay, good. Thank you. Um, uh, some people just want to know how to get in touch with DDS. I'm answering those questions. And it's not so much, well, maybe you might want to comment on this. It's not so much that people are going to be getting in touch with DDS. Wouldn't people go through their regional center first?
Correct. So if you like, let's say my email was on there. So if you email me directly, for probably the first step I'm going to be doing is directing you back to the regional center. So we again on the state level work primarily with our regional centers and looking at policies, compliance, uh, and contracting funding with the regional centers. The actual services that are being determined in those IPPs are done at the regional center level with your service coordinator. So probably my first step would be directing you back to the regional center. But I mean, if there's like, well, you have those resources. But yeah, that would usually be my first stop, is to say, contact your regional center.
Okay. And i- is there any age when a family can have a regional center client contact the employment specialist for services? I mean, do they have to be over 18, just like the PIP?
They don't have to be over 18, but I mean, the reality is that they need to be entering working age, right? So it could be maybe be a little bit before it could be during it. But I mean, if you're contacting the employment specialist when they're 3, there might be some like, well, we're not quite there yet, right? Um, but yeah, I think there's no minimum age. However, I would just say they would probably want to make it more focused on like actual when they're reaching that employment age.
Okay, but it's good to be thinking about it. Okay,
Absolutely.
I'm directing attention. I meant to do it the last 4 times. Back to the chat about the English evaluation and the Spanish evaluation links. Please click on it. We're woefully below 80. We need to get maybe about 40 more. So come on, please just click that button, answer those questions. We only have about a couple of minutes left. Okay. Um, we've talked about talking about employment maybe in the home, finding the passion. Our kids have a longer one way. Any opportunities you would recommend for middle schoolers to get prepared for
Ooh,
employment?
a wonderful question. I've never been asked that. And now you're gonna make me think. Uh,
Mhm.
Middle school. The only thing I can really think of, that's as you stumped me there. I thought I had it out, but you caught me. Um, I think it's more about talking within that in those IPP meetings. Start bringing up employment. Start saying, hey, when we start getting into school, what are those options? What's available in my, because like, not every school district has a workability one program. Not every school district has those work experience programs. So knowing in those IPP meetings, um, talking with IEP meetings, excuse me. I meant to say IEP meetings. In those IEP meetings, I get IEP, too many acronyms, right? We're being told at the department to stop using so many acronyms.
Yeah, right.
But at the IEP meeting, as they're transitioning to those middle schools, be like, what's out there? What is available to us? Especially when they start getting into high school. Like if I know what high school I'm going to or what district I'm in, what are the options? What's
Mhm,
available to us?
mhm. Well, it doesn't hurt. When I do a presentation on how a parent can be involved in crafting that really robust ITP, that individual transition plan, it's those community activities and experiences that happen out of school. And you can't expect that the teachers are going to be able to do that, or the employment specialists at the regional center are going to be able to know your student. And but what you could do is be asking for those vocational assessments early. You could find out what your student wants to do, and then you can help them go out into the community to find those things that they want to do and scaffold those activities. So that could be something, bring it
Yeah.
home.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to kick this back to high school real quick. I do want to do a shout out to our partners over at the Department of Rehabilitation. They have a program called the Youth Leadership Forum, YLF.
Mm,
And this is something that you can start accessing, I think, in the junior and senior year of education. And what they do is bring cohorts of kids together with disabilities to become self advocates, to really understand what it means for them to advocate for themselves. So they do a whole week over at Sac State. They go to the Capitol, they learn about where all these laws are made that affect them.
mhm,
They have these group building activities of just how to be a more outspoken advocate for yourself. It's a wonderful program. My son did it. My oldest son did it, and then went back as a counselor.
mm.
And now my middle boy is doing it. I can't um, say enough about how good YLF is. So I just want to give a little shout out to our DOR partners because that's a wonderful program. If you have a high school age kid that could really benefit from the self advocate skills.
Yes, for sure. And I'm just having a hard time getting the link for it, but I will get it and I will put it in the email. Um, We have 39 more questions. We have run out of time. We're already 2 minutes over. So I want to thank Michael. Please come back. We want to have you back. I think everybody wants to have you back. You're getting the hearts. You're getting. We want you to come back.
These
We
are
were
my
talking
emails.
about
Appreciate
some topics that might be good for Michael to return and speak with us. So thank you, Michael. Thank you, Beatrice. My God, Michael talked fast, as do I. He kind of rivals me. So hopefully it
it.
worked, but you will be getting the slides in Spanish. And thank you, all of you, for coming. You come, you take your time, you learn, you ask questions. We don't always get them answered, and we really appreciate the fact that you keep coming back. So thank you, thank you. Any last words, Michael?
Just again, thank you everyone for taking the time. I love to see how many people stayed on through the entire presentation. That really
Mhm.
was amazing. Just as again, just want to mention, just as a parent, as one of I always think of, I love being here because I'm sitting there going, one of us, like my people, my parents. This is my group, and I love that I was invited. I love that I was able to speak with you all as parents to parents. Um, let's expect our kids to work. Let's get them independent. Let's get them because we're not going to be here forever, right? We're
I
not.
won't be here forever. That's a
We
series of ours. Yes.
yeah, we're not going to be here forever, and we have to prepare our kids to be able to take care of themselves. And the reality is, it's not getting easier; it's getting harder. And employment is freedom. Employment is independence. So keep it up. I know there's hard days. I know there's days my wife and I have, as educated as we are, we have our crying days where it feels like we're just at our end. But if I could offer anything, but again, I mentioned I got a kid in college, I got a kid getting a pilot's license, I got a kid that's an actress, all of them with disabilities. It can happen. You just got to push them. You got to push them. You got to believe in them, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
got to all those naysayers. Don't let them bring you down. You tell like no, no. You expect more of your children. I expect more of my children. I expect more of all of our children. Let's get them working.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. That was a great note to end on. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. And you're getting lots of love. Okay. Take care.